Morning, guys. All right, injuries for practice today. Spencer Burford, calf, will not practice. Greenlaw, calf, will not practice. Aaron Banks, knee, will not practice. Robert Beal, ankle, will not practice. Jair Brown, ankle, limited. Garindo, foot/hamstring, limited. Go ahead.
And Buzz is good to go.
Yep.
With Aaron Banks' knee, is that a surgical thing that he'll have to have, or will that just heal on its own?
I can't remember. I know he's got an MCL. I don't remember what they told me a few days ago. I think it's a
Impact him in free agency?
no. If he does, it's minor. I mean, he's going to be good in a few weeks, they say. So.
If you were waiting for further information on Burford the other day, what did you hear back?
That nothing real specific, just that he won't be able to go today, and hopefully we'll later in the week, but it's going to be tight. Yeah, there's a chance.
Charlie Heck at tackle, at least for today's practice?
Possibly. Well, we're going to work him at a bunch of spots, so see what he can do. We're going to work him at a couple of spots, see what he can do for us. We got to mix and match a number of guys.
You think we can resolution with Dre in the last two games?
Yeah, he's not going to play in these two games.
Was he an agreement, or did you have to sell him on it? Or?
I think he understood. Yeah.
When you're looking at the line and preparing for them, their front seven obviously is pretty attrition with injuries as well. How have they survived, and how different does their defense look as opposed to the last playoff game?
Not much different. I've heard about all their injuries, which is a huge credit to them because they've had a ton. But I was expecting it to look a lot worse than it actually does. I mean, they're still number one team in the league on third down. I think they're number 6 in red zone. The way that they play the run, they've been banged up the most on D-line and linebacker. But the way they play their run and the way they rush the passer, just individually missing a couple good guys, but collectively they still do it at a very high level. And comparing them to last year, just their coverage is a lot better. They've added some new guys, drafting a young corner, bringing some guys in there, and so they're further along in defense than they were last year at this time.
Moody obviously has been inconsistent this season. Does his, some of his struggles raise any questions about his long-term future, whether he's your guy?
I still feel the same about him, that I believe he's going to be our guy. Everyone's got to perform and do things like that, and I think he has had a tough year. I think before his high ankle sprain, I think he was missed one. I think he was 12 or 13 before that, so I thought he was doing really well, and then had a high ankle sprain to his kicking foot. Since he's come back, he hasn't been as consistent, obviously. But I think a lot of that probably has to do with that, just common sense-wise, and hopefully he can get to this off season, heal up, and find his stroke again, and play at a high level that I think he will, because he's real talented. I think he's made of the right stuff just from a mental standpoint and everything, and I think he has all the tools to be a great kicker in this league. He's still working to find that, though.
Is there something to be said for being pushed in training camp for kickers to have that kind of daily competition where every kick there's something riding on it?
I don't know. Maybe. I think you got the wrong guy if you have to. You do that when you don't think you're going to have a guy, but when those guys miss too much, you go get a new one usually. And that's what's tough about the kicker position. That's what's tough. I remember we were in Washington, and we had a young kicker who missed a number of kicks, but I didn't have much experience with kicking then. I remember kept telling the head coach that he's cost us 2 games, when are we going to move on from this guy? And he kept telling me how talented he was. You got to be patient. But then he lost us a 3rd game, and then the head coach had to make a move. But 2 years later, that guy was the highest paid kicker in the league and going to Pro Bowls. So he was right. We had to be patient, but how long can you do it? And so I think that's just what's tough with that position. There's no backups and stuff like that. So that's what the challenge is. But I believe we got the right guy. And I think eventually, I think he has shown that at times. I thought he showed that at times his rookie year. I thought he showed that big time, being 12 out of 13 to start this year. And I think he'll show us all that in the future.
About his emotional state, his confidence at all?
No.
James, you saw the Lions going for it on 4th down. That's kind of worked to your advantage. But when a team is as aggressive as they are in that regard, how does it just change maybe the mindset of what you have to be, in terms of things defensively?
It means that they probably have an extra down. It's similar when you go against Philly and how good they are in the tush push. and just understanding when it's 3rd and 4 that it's almost like it's 2nd and 4 because they're going to go for it on 4th and anything less than that. Just Dan, with how aggressive he's been, you got to understand that anywhere on the field, whether it's trick plays, whether it's going for it, whether it's special teams plays. I mean, everything's up. So sometimes it helps, sometimes it hurts, and same thing for the opposing team.
The way they've been rolling offensively this year, have you seen them grow even more? I mean, he obviously wasn't afraid to do it last year, but even more confident in those situations?
I feel like he's been pretty confident in it for a while.
With Trent's injury, is there any concern that is like a long-term career-threatening thing?
Not that we've heard of. I mean, it's always concerned that it's taken longer to heal than expected. But talking, I mean, he's seen a number of specialists. He's seen our own guys. So everyone's pretty much on the same page. He just needs some time and it'll heal. So there's really no worries there. But we just wanted it to heal faster. I know that we liked him coming out of college. He's done a good job there in Atlanta. And I was really pumped to get him in this situation at this time.
Brock Purdy and just where he is at this point of the season, how do you feel like his progress has been? I mean, last year his season and his stats were ridiculous, and then this year it's been a challenge. So where do you feel like he's at?
Exactly what you just said. He's in a more challenging situation this year. He's got 2 more weeks of it. I think it's going to end up being really good for him in the long run. I thought he played at such a high level in some situations last year that, you know, some were good and easier, but then some were tough, just like even both playoff games. Some of the situations we were in and him leading us back to end up winning both of those and go to the Super Bowl. I think this year just having a number of his guys down and things like that has been harder on him. But usually that stuff can make you better. And I think he's fought through it all year. He's got 2 more weeks to fight through it, and hopefully we can still improve in these 2 weeks and then get to the film in the offseason.
And how does he seem emotionally, just like you've talked to him one-on-one?
I think Brock's been good. I mean, Brock's a very strong person. I think he's disappointed. He had high expectations this year, just like we all did. I also don't think, and he hasn't ever been in a losing situation yet. So I think that's very hard for him. But to watch how he responds each week, to watch how he practices, to watch how he is in the meetings, he's always the same guy, and nothing's changed in that way.
Down question. How much do you look at these last 2 weeks as maybe a chance to experiment with anything that you've been thinking about throughout the year? Or is that not how you look at it?
That's not how I look at it. I mean, I'll experiment with anything if I think it's the right decision, gives our players a chance to be successful. But I don't just experiment with things to experiment with it. It's got to make sense who we're going against, what you're asking someone to do, and if it gives us a chance or helps us have a chance to win.
After the end, this is one of the first times that he hasn't had games where he's played for something, and there's a lot of guys that are in the locker room that are like that as well. How do you manage their mental state, their expectations for that last 2 games?
I got to tell them welcome to the reality of the world. I mean, I think it's a credit to some of the situations we've been in here the last few years, but that's not the only reason you play. And this is your job. You put on a 49er uniform, and all of us get into this because we want to make that tournament and have a chance to get to a Super Bowl. And a lot of our guys haven't been in that situation before, so they're not used to it. But teams all over the league are in this situation, and you still got to go out there and perform the same way, because once you start thinking that there's not a reason to go out there and play your best, that's when you're usually closer to the end than the beginning.
The team at all to start the week going into this game?
Not really. I didn't see that much different than last week also. So I think we've been in that mindset and understand that, and I see the same situation each week.
Moody, do you feel like missing kicks, especially for a young kicker, is part of the process that ultimately will make them a better kicker, kind of struggling through that?
You hope so. I think that's one of if you have the talent, someone like Jake, I think that's everything. I think the mental part of the game is huge. How you react to these things. I think it's the same thing with quarterbacks. You watch some backup quarterbacks come in for a starter, play really well. They do it for a couple games. Then they have their 3-pick game and they get killed, and then you see how they respond to that. And some guys come back, and some guys it kind of breaks, and they want to go back to not having as much pressure on them. So I think that's a huge part of this game with every position. But when it comes to the kicker, since it's such a specialty and a deal that really only they deal with, I think the mental part's as big as anything.
Take some more, guys.
It was 95. 2014 is the only year Bobby Turner has been with you or your dad. Was that what happened? And it's just a random question. I'm not investigating this, but how come he couldn't come with you to the Browns?
Because not always in charge of hiring the staff. No one really came with me. I just got hired last. I got hired in February, and they had a running back coach there, so you don't always get to pick your staff when you're not the head coach. I believe so. Yeah. Yeah. All right, guys.